In this video, you will complete another page in your interactive notebook. So if you will turn to your table of contents and label the next two page numbers 14 to 15, and the title of it is Find LCM. Pause the video and label your table of contents. Now that you have labeled your table of contents, I need you to turn to your next blank two-page spread. Remember, 2 blank pages. And on the page on the left, I need you to put the page number 14 and the title, Find LCM Ladder Method. Pause your video and label your page. Remember, your pages should look just like what you see on the board. So by now, you should have labeled your table of contents with the new page numbers, and you also should have labeled page 14, Find LCM Ladder Method at the top of your blank page. Now, we've been working on greatest common factor, so today I'm going to introduce you to how to determine the least common multiple, or LCM, using the same method that we used yesterday, which was the ladder method. We're going to use what we learned yesterday in class, but instead of finding the GCF, today our focus, our goal, is to find the LCM. So yesterday, when we were talking about factors, we were thinking of factors are numbers that divide into a whole number. For example, the factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4, because those are the numbers that divide evenly into 12. When we shift our thinking to multiples, we're going to think about counting by those numbers. For instance, if I said the multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12. A multiple is where I take any number and multiply it times 1, times 2, times 3, and so forth. In other words, I count by those numbers. The multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and so on. The multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. So today we're going to be looking at multiples instead of factors. The first thing we need to make sure of is that we have the definition of least common multiple. Pause your video and write this sentence down with the blanks. Okay, you should have copied this sentence, and we're going to fill in the blanks with the definition of least common multiple. The least common multiple, or LCM, is the least means lowest. So as yesterday we were looking for the greatest common factor, today we're going to be looking for the lowest number that is a common multiple. In other words, we're going to look at when we count by some numbers, we're going to find the lowest possible number, lowest common multiple of 2 or more numbers. Pause your video and make sure you have this definition. So the least common multiple, or LCM, is the lowest number that is a common multiple of 2 or more whole numbers. Now we could make a list, 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12. If I were listing the multiples of 3, I could make a list. The multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, and so on. The multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, and so on. Pause your video and write those two lists down. So you have right here in front of you the two lists of the multiples of 3 and 4. If we count by 3s and we count by 4s, here is our list. So if we were looking for the lowest number that we see in both lists, that would be 12. So the least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. You probably learned that in elementary school. So what I'm going to show you in the rest of the video is how to use the ladder method, which we did yesterday, to determine LCM. So if you will, pause your video and copy down these 3 examples. Now that you have copied these down, we're going to start our ladder just like we did yesterday. So this is a good review of what we did yesterday in class. If you look at example number 1, I'm going to make a ladder for the numbers 12 and 18. So I need to think of a number that will divide evenly into 12 and 18. Well, I'm just going to use 2 because they are both even. Pause your video and write that. 2 goes into 12 how many times? It'll go 6 times, so that goes under the 12. And 2 goes into 18 9 times. Pause your video and complete that part. Now, if you look at the factors 6 and 9, you've got to think of a number other than 1 that will divide evenly into 6 and 9. Well, I should know from my multiplication tables that 3 is a factor of both of those. Pause your video and write that down. 3 goes into 6 twice, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. Pause your video and complete that. So we are finished with our ladder because when you get down and you look at 2 and 3, the only number that divides evenly into those two is 1. So I'm finished with my ladder. Now here's where the difference is. Yesterday when we were looking at GCF, we only used the numbers right here to the left. Those were the common factors. And I told you to make a G around those. Today we're going to use the same ladder, but we're going to pick out different numbers for the LCM. So I want you to watch me. I'm going to take the numbers on the left side and the factors around the bottom, and I am going to make a block L. L for LCM and G for GCF. Just keep in mind that if we were finding the GCF, we would only use the common factors on the left, whereas LCM, we're going to take into account all of the factors at the left and the bottom. So if you will pause your video and block in those factors. So you'll notice that we have blocked in the common factors of 2, 3, 2, and 3. So just like we did yesterday, we're going to multiply those, and that will give me the LCM. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. The least common multiple of 12 and 18 is 36. Pause your video and finish that problem. All right, let's look at example number 2. We're going to make another ladder with 8 and 10. This time we're going to find the least common multiple just like we did in example 1. So 2 is a factor of 8 and 10 because those are even numbers. Pause your video and I want you to finish this ladder on your own. So you should have said that 2 goes into 8 4 times and 2 goes into 10 5 times. And you are finished with that ladder because 1 is the only number that goes evenly into both 4 and 5. Now remember, if we were finding the GCF, we would only use the 2 that is on the left side. But we're finding LCM, so I want you to draw a block L for least common multiple. Draw that block L around all of the numbers on the left and at the bottom. Pause your video and do that now. So make sure that your block L looks like mine, and you will notice that within that block L for least common multiple, we have 3 factors. They are 2, 4, and 5. Pause your video and write those down. Just like we did yesterday, we are going to multiply these. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. So the LCM of 8 and 10 is 40. Pause your video and finish that example. The last example we're going to do, example 3, we are going to determine the least common multiple of 3 numbers instead of 2. Our ladder, we're going to solve it the same way that we did yesterday. What you should notice is that 5 goes into all 3 of those because they either end in a 5 or a 0. Pause your video and finish that ladder. You should have said that 5 goes into 5 1 time, 5 goes into 10 2 times, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. and we would be finished with the ladder because the number 1 is the only number that divides evenly into all three, 1, 2, and 3. Now, again, if we were finding the GCF, we would use only the 5 right here on the left, but we are not finding GCF today. We are finding LCM, so we're going to draw a block L for least around all of the numbers on the outside and the bottom. So pause your video and make sure you do that block L. So the numbers that you should have boxed in with your block L are 5, 1, 2, and 3. Once you have those listed, we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday. We're going to multiply those. Well, 5 times 1 is 5, times 2 is 10, and then 10 times 3 is 30. So the LCM of 5, 10, and 15 is 30. Pause your video and finish that example. Now that we have done 3 examples together, you are going to do some practice problems on your own. So, if you will, make sure that on this same page of your notebook, page 14, I want you to copy down these 2 practice problems. Copy them down just like you see them. Now that you have copied these practice problems, 1 and 2, in just a moment, you're going to pause the video and complete those 2 problems. Now, before we do that, I want to remind you of a few things. If your notebook page does not look just like mine, you need to go back and make sure that you have written the headings, the page numbers, the definition, examples 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you have numbered those examples 1, 2, and 3. And by now you should have the 2 practice problems under the heading practice. Your notebook page should be labeled just like mine. Another reminder is for the practice problems that you're going to do on your own, make sure that you do the ladder just like we did yesterday, but you're not finding GCF. I want you to find the LCM for today's work. And remember, when you find LCM, you're not just going to use these numbers right here on the side like we did yesterday, but you're going to block in the numbers on the side and at the bottom to make a block L, and then you multiply them, and that will give you the least common multiple. So the ladder method is the same as what we learned with GCF. It is different in that the numbers that you use at the bottom and the side, those are different. Make sure you know the difference. So you're going to, after you end this video, you're going to complete the 2 practice problems at the bottom, and then we will go over those answers before you leave today. So go ahead and end the video and complete those problems.